This is 4-2, solving quadratics by graphing. The first thing that we're going to talk about is a solution. Obviously, if you're solving something, you're going to find a solution. Solutions to quadratic equations are called roots. And you can find these roots by finding zeros of a quadratic function. And if you look at the graph here, it's the x-intercepts. So the x-intercepts of this graph are 3 and -2. If I were to plug in 3 and -2 back to the original equation that represents this graph, I would find that it equals 0. So the function that is being used here, f of x, equals x squared minus x minus 6. If I were to plug in 3, f at 3 squared minus 3 minus 6, that would give me 9 minus 3 minus 6. This makes 6 minus 6, which equals 0. So f at 3 equals 0. That means when I plug in an x value of 3, I get a y value of 0. Therefore, putting it on the x-axis, that means that it is an x-intercept. If I do the same thing with the -2, f at -2 equals -2. Remember, put it in parentheses. It's really important that you put that -2 in parentheses because in this case right here, you don't want to get mixed up with your negative and the minus sign. So this becomes 4 plus 2 minus 6. 4 plus 2 is 6, so you get 6 minus 6, which is 0. So f at -2 equals 0. Again, when I plugged in -2, I got 0. So you're looking, if you're just graphing it, you're just looking for where the graph crosses the x-axis. Now, if you look down here at the bottom, there are many representations here. If your graph crosses the x-axis, or it doesn't cross, it just touches it and goes back, then there's only one solution, whatever that value is. But you still have a quadratic function, so we'll talk about what that means a little later. If you have two places where it crosses the x-axis, you have two real solutions. Now, on the first one I said just one solution, it's one real solution. Go back to when we talked about the sets of numbers. Real numbers are the rational and irrational numbers, and on the rational side you have whole numbers, natural whole, integers. So you want to remember that they are real solutions. Okay, here the graph does not touch the x-axis at all, so there are no real solutions. Okay? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the textbook, and we're just going to talk about some different problems, and then I'll give you problems in class to do. This is a very straightforward lesson. If you look at this problem here, the number of zeros, well, first it doesn't even touch the x-axis, so it has no real solutions. So we're looking to determine its solutions. No real solutions for this one. For this one, your answer should be x equals 5 and -2. You see where it crosses the x-axis at those two locations. And for this one, we only touch one time there, so at -1, 2, 3, 4. So -4 is the solution here. For these types of problems, you just take your graphing calculator and you go to the y equals screen and type in, let's type in x squared plus 8x. X squared is up under what we were using as the matrix key in the inverse. There's the squared button, plus 8x, plus 8x, and then just hit graph. My window is all messed up, so I'm going to have to change my window. If yours is different, you can always hit zoom and the number 6. See how it says standard? That means put it back into a window that is from -10 to +10 on both axes. Now, I don't need to see the vertex at this point because the goal of this lesson is, can you find the zeros? So if you see here, it looks like it's crossing at the origin. And over here, whatever this value is, I could count the little tick marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like -8. But just to be sure, I want to use my table and see how it's in blue. That means I have to hit my second key. So go second table. And again, my table, I've used it, and so it's starting at a off the wall, just a random number. So I want to tell it, hey, just start at 0. So I go second. This window button, above it, it says table set, and that means table set up. And I want to start my table at 0, and counting by ones is okay right now. Go back to your table, hit second and the graph button. And notice at 0, my y value is 0. Remember, if it's an x-intercept, you're looking for where the y value is 0. So when x is 0, y is 0, so one of the x-intercepts is 0. The other one, it looked like it was at -8. So we're going to scroll backwards, and there it is. At -8, the y value is 0. So your two values are 0 and -8. X equals 0 and -8. Let's try number 5. Y equals, I'm going to leave x squared in there. I'll change my plus sign. I'm just going to hit minus instead of a plus there. Change this to a 3. It'll just overwrite it for you. I'm going to arrow over to get off of the x, and then I'm going to put -18. Please make sure that when you're typing in an equation like this, or an expression, you don't use the negative sign down here. This negative sign will treat it as just a negative number, and then it'll multiply them together, and you'll get a graph that's off the wall. Okay, so then we hit graph. Again, we're just looking for where does the graph cross. And so it looks like at -3, and it also looks like at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. -3 and 6, so I'm going to go second table and check my values. -3 is correct, and 6 is also correct. Another way to do this, I'm going to quit this screen, and I am going to go back to the graph, and if I hit second and calc, you see something really important. It says 0. Roots and zeros are the same thing. They represent the same value. It's just whether or not you have a function or an equation. So 0, and it says, well, what's on the left side of the 0 that you're looking for? Left bound. So I'm going to hit one of these arrows, and I don't even see my cursor blinking on the screen, so I'm going to find it. Just hit the arrow over. There it is, there it is. Okay, now to be on the left side of this 0, because this graph is opening upwards, remember it gets wider and wider and wider as it opens up. So if I want to be further to the left, I have to be here. Right here where my cursor is blinking. That's on the left side. I'm going to hit enter there. Now that's to the left of the 0, just slightly. Now I want to go to the right side of the 0 and hit enter. And then it says guess. You can just hit enter where you are, or you can try to see if you can get any closer to where that 0 is, like exactly on the x-axis. It's not going to let me do it, so I hit enter. and it tells me -3 is my value. So you could go and do that with the other one too. Second, trace button, 0. Now this time on the other side, if I scroll all the way, because I'm going to this one over here now, the left bound on this one is underneath the x-axis, because remember, as it crosses through the x-axis, it's going to keep widening out to the right. So the left bound, let's see where my cursor is. There it is. Left bound is going to be there, and the right bound I'm going to hit to the right one. And guess, I'm going to go back to the one that was closest to guess, and there it is. So that's how you're going to find roots or zeros or solutions to quadratics. We'll do some more of these problems in class. Have a great day.